Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Bare Necessities post-game podcast. That was an interesting game. It's honestly one that in the beginning we started to see the offensive struggles against the Jaguars, and you're like, oh my God, what a joke. Like, how typical that this team can't hold their own against a Jaguars team that's terrible and has the first overall pick and is putting Mike Glennon at starting quarterback. And then all of a sudden, Roquan Smith gets that pick. We put up 3 points. And we come out in the second half, make some adjustments, and just dominate for probably like 20 minutes worth of games. So till 4 minutes left and 10 seconds. We just straight dominated, put up like 27 points, 28 points, 4 touchdowns. And then we threw in Foles because we're like, all right, this game's over. I mean, that is explosive. 28 points in probably about 20 minutes. That's quality, man. The defense locked up towards the end of the game. They were honestly kind of being suspect for a little bit in the beginning there. But, they got back on it. They started dominating. They locked up the Jaguars as they should have the entire game. And we rolled. And I guess my biggest takeaway, and we'll get more into some of the more specific parts, but my biggest overall takeaway is I'm really happy to see that this team, even if they go through a little bit of issues in the beginning of a game, they can realign, they can get back on track, and then they can switch back to dominating. That being said, we have to keep this into perspective. This is the Jaguars and not really, any sort of quality team, but it's good to know that we could be beating a team by 31 points and then putting our backups in. I don't care who we've been playing over the past 4 weeks, the way the Bears offense has been playing. I mean, I don't know statistically, but I remember just a couple weeks ago, the Bears were ranking in the 4th in NFL offense over the couple weeks. And now I have to imagine we're probably at first over the past 4 weeks in yards per game, or scoring offense per game.
Yeah, we'd at least have to be close, and it was definitely good to see the resiliency and them battling adversity. And, it probably could be said if they're playing a bit tougher a team, maybe it'd be a bit of a battle towards the end. But on a very positive side, it was one of the first times this season, or one of the few times this season, I think, Nagy really came out and adjusted well after halftime. I mean, they usually really struggle hard in the third quarter, and they came alive this game in the third quarter. Like you said, Austin, it's when they really started to pull that gap, and they really started to show kind of the difference between the two teams. I mean, the Bears honestly just have so much more talent, even battling through injuries on the defensive side of the ball, and it was a little tough to watch in the first half, and it wasn't very confident, or it wasn't very inspiring to see Mitchell Trubisky make a couple bad decisions in the first half. But for the rest of the game, he really kind of settled in and just managed the game, and that's really all that was asked of him. I think that Bill Lazor did a good job formatting the game plan and also in his play calling throughout the game, and kept feeding Montgomery, which I think has been a consistent theme during this Bears patch of success. And he really just gets better and better as the game goes on, so it works out well. And as this team keeps going on, it seems like they're really starting to build some momentum. And even though it's just against a Jaguars team, this team is going to feel pretty good heading into their game next week against Green Bay.
And looking at a couple of accomplishments that happened in this game, the Chicago Bears scored 30-plus points in 4 straight games for the first time since 1965. I mean, that's kind of sad, but that's also, great progress there. And then David Montgomery reaches 1K rushing yards this season. That's something that we talked about pretty extensively that we expected to happen this season when we were talking about in the off season, how he was kind of prone to have a breakout year. Roquan Smith, 2 interceptions. That was, crazy game by him. Man, it's hard to believe that he didn't get selected to a Pro Bowl roster. But I think that he's probably going to end up reaching that all-pro level regardless of what the Pro Bowl thinks.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he really had, one hell of a game. Both him and Danny Trevathan. I mean, I think they really just, read the game, perfectly well. And, the Jaguars aren't a team that's overly complex. They kind of play a pretty bland play style. And, it's about, what their ceiling is right now. And I think for a defense like the Bears, they kind of struggled against the run and gave up a couple bad passes. I mean, Kendall Vildor got, picked apart in a particular drive. But, after that, that defense adjusted, settled in, and, both the middle linebackers were dominant all game. Danny Trevathan even had a couple of really good plays. And, Roquan Smith, I mean, the second one maybe it was a little bit more of a fluke than the first one was. But, he was playing. He was putting himself in all the right places today. And, yeah, he's definitely an all-pro in my mind. I think that, he's been phenomenal. And, you kind of led on to it a little bit with David Montgomery. I think that the two players that we really called out to really step it up this season, and Montgomery and Roquan Smith really have. And, maybe it was just kind of obvious and where we could both see it, that they're kind of both on that step of, really kind of breaking through. But, especially with the help on the offensive line and, defensively for Roquan, also having someone like Danny Trevathan, who, we've critiqued a good amount throughout the season for maybe being a little bit slow, maybe being a little bit of liability in pass defense, at least as the Bears have kind of resurged, I feel like he has too, and kind of at least been able to put it into an extra gear for this last push.
And the Bears, another accomplishment in my mind, that now they have a 1,000-yard passing wide receiver, and they have a 1,000-yard rushing running back, which I cannot remember the last time that probably happened. It had to have been back with Marshall and Forte.
That's why my mind would jump to that. Either a Forte or a Jeffrey, or a Forte and a Marshall, but that would have to be it.
Yeah, and I can't really remember exactly, but I mean, that's another accomplishment this season. It does make you wonder what would have happened if Mitchell Trubisky wasn't benched. But I really think the advantage that we've seen is just the Bears have realized that they need to stop trying to make Trubisky this, perfect passing quarterback. He is a heavily, heavily flawed quarterback. And I think Nagy is finally just realizing, what he is, and then trying to design something that it kind of takes the pressure off of him. Very similar to, I think, what's happening with Jared Goff in Los Angeles. Two flawed quarterbacks, guys that, mentally they don't really see the game the way other quarterbacks do. They don't really have the processing power of, a lot of other guys like Patrick Mahomes, or even some not so great quarterbacks that are in the NFL, but you're able to win with them if you do enough schematically. And that's all the Bears offense has been. It's been RPO, reading half the side of the field, trying to balance it off with the run game. David Montgomery's resurgence has been really good. But I think the one takeaway that we need to remember today is, and it's actually kind of funny because something came out this morning by Adam Schefter that the Bears would highly consider re-signing Mitchell Trubisky to some sort of extension. It wouldn't be much, but it would be something if they make the playoffs and if they, make a run. That being said, I think today kind of cemented in my mind, and hopefully it did in a lot of other Bears fans, so they stopped calling for it, that this offense is not winning because of Mitchell Trubisky. They're winning in spite of Mitchell Trubisky, oftentimes trying to find ways to hide him. And that's very similar to what's in Los Angeles right now with the Rams. You're trying to find ways to win in spite of the quarterback. And I'm very happy for Mitchell Trubisky that he has found some sort of, something that is finding him success. But I think it's pretty clear that whenever it comes down to it and he has to make a, NFL pro quarterback type of throw, that he's not really converting on those. We saw it with that really poor interception in the end zone. That has to be one of the worst I've seen from a quarterback this season. And then also, a couple of the other passes he made that could have been picked off that weren't, the overthrow to Cole Kmet. I know that he was under pressure, but at the same time, you got to convert these things in the NFL. He was wide open. And while I am very happy with Mitch's performance, the thing that I have to say is you put any quarterback worth mentioning that has mobility in his position right now, and they're going to convert. They're going to convert a lot of these plays. I think what I've been happy to see from Trubisky is just him being a little bit more decisive with his plays. And that's really been the personal growth in my mind, is the decisiveness. I think that he is also, more accurate than last season, but still not an accurate quarterback downfield. But hey, I mean, how much can you complain right now? I hope we do not re-sign him. I hope we understand that this is really a product of the environment he's putting in. There's a lot of quarterbacks that could be succeeding in his place right now, and that we need to look for a little bit more, because that type of system hasn't been enough for the 49ers or the Rams, who both went to the Super Bowl but lost in the Super Bowl. Partially because of their quarterback, because once you reach a certain level of team, they're going to find ways to disrupt them, or your quarterback's just eventually going to be figured out. It's not super sustainable. I'm happy that we're finding it for this season, but I truthfully believe that we need to be careful and still I would even be okay with re-signing Trubisky if the plan is also to draft a quarterback, because I think Trubisky is far and beyond better than Foles right now. And really, I think that's all that can be said on Trubisky.
I think that, the key word that you said is sustainability. And, the fact is they've hit a good groove with where Trubisky's at right now. But, as we've seen in the past and how we've seen this whole Trubisky story go, is that, it's not going to work out forever. It's not very consistent. And, once you get into some of those tougher matchups, it's kind of easier to pick this game plan apart because it is simple. And, I think Trubisky made a couple decent throws today, particularly some tighter windows to Allen Robinson, but a lot of the throws were a lot of quick, easy slants that, a good high school, decent college quarterback would be able to make, on any given day of the week, where it's just a good setup and play design where it's going to be a nice, easy path for Trubisky to make a quick read and throw the ball there. And I think that, it's clear to see that, throughout his development, it's been slow. I mean, he's still making mistakes that, you'd expect, maybe a first or second year quarterback to make. But, for someone that's at his point and his level of experience that he's had in the league, he shouldn't be making these kind of, mistakes. And I don't know what it's going to take for him to really kind of get that mentality to throw the ball away. We've seen it at times, but it just doesn't really seem to be something that goes through his head. And, very much how, Trubisky's style play isn't sustainable. That kind of mentality is just, he's not thinking long term. He's thinking very much in the now. And you need a quarterback that's going to have a lot, a deeper mindset than that, and, a lot deeper knowledge of football and in how the game goes. So the Bears definitely need to make a change there. I think I'd be fine if they signed him to like a backup contract, had him in the stable since he's familiar with the system and all that. And, has obviously, been the starter for this team for a while, but yeah, they definitely need to get someone else in there in order for me to be, pleased with the moves that they made. And I think definitely winning in spite of his play is definitely the way to put it. I think that it's very much kind of just, being able to put an offense out there that he's been able to execute, and they've finally been able to find the way that they can maximize his play style. But, you could still see this offense could still be so much more than it even is right now. And we're just kind of seeing what it's like to have a nice, balanced offense that works in rhythm.
It's kind of sad because towards the end of the game, after we not benched Trubisky, that's bad to say. After we took Trubisky out because we didn't want him to get hurt, we saw that Mike Glennon pass into the end zone to put the Jaguars up to 17 rather than just having 10. And the thing I instantly said is, this is really sad to say, but Mitchell Trubisky would have never made that throw. And whenever you're talking about that, when you're comparing your quarterback to, a career backup and someone who has been, quite frankly, terrible throughout his entire career, that is enough for me to say that, we have to move on. And I don't want to make this negative, because I think that we should have more positives coming from this, because, hey, I mean, this should give us a ton of confidence in the current coaching staff here, especially how they would handle a rookie quarterback. These are a lot of different schematical techniques that are used by teams who have rookie quarterbacks, and it puts them in advantageous situations. So the fact that we could potentially have this level of production with a rookie quarterback that also has the potential to develop further and actually become that guy, the guy that can raise this offense to a different level. I mean, that's kind of scary, and it's kind of proving that a lot of the Bears' struggles this year were, in my opinion, partially because of Nick Foles, but more so on the fact that the offensive line regressed so terribly. And in times where we've seen Matt Nagy have his best offenses, that's in 2018 and right now, this previous 4-game stretch, the one consistent factor has been good offensive line play. Hey, even average offensive line play. Where we've seen Matt Nagy's offenses dip significantly has been when the offensive line has been playing towards the bottom of the league. And I think it was right by Nagy to go ahead and hand the play calling duties over. I don't know if he was just stretching himself too thin or what was happening, but you can tell the offense looks a lot more sharp since he's done that. Even the plays that would go wrong typically are going right now. And it's not even necessarily a play calling advantage. It just looks like the offense is much more fine tuned. And while I do think Laser has been a significantly better play caller than Matt Nagy, I think really what has taken this team to the next level is just that extra added level of, sharpness, confidence, quick execution, like everything. The tempo is huge. And I think that has really taken this offense to the next level and partially why they are performing like one of the top offenses in the NFL over the past 4 weeks.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't really agree with that more. I think that, Bears fans should see this as kind of a indicator that, if we had a good young quarterback, in here, I'd even have to think that, someone at the level of like Josh Allen, if you could get someone with kind of like that level of potential to operate within this offense, I think that the
Trey Lance, that's someone who I compare Trey Lance to extensively.
So yeah, let's just do a hypothetical. You get someone like Trey Lance in this offense, and even the further steps forward that this offense could take, I think it would be night and day, and it would be sustained success. I think that why Nagy has had such kind of inconsistent success with this Bears team is just a product of, like you said, I think it's a link of that level of quarterback play and also offensive line production, which, I think he needs both within this offense for it to really, successfully thrive. And, if they're able to kind of nail down the offensive line and hopefully add some, better pieces on the edge, and then you pair that with a younger quarterback that can develop within the system, that could be, hopefully, 8 to 10 years of success, and then you allow to, maybe you have to retool the defense over the years as some of these pieces get older. But, in order to truly become one of these franchises that, experiences, long, periods of success, like the Patriots or, the Packers or some of the other big teams that are able to consistently do it, I think it just boils down to ultimately being able to make that. And, hopefully the Bears will have an opportunity to go out there and get someone like Trey Lance or, someone at a similar level, in this following season. Otherwise, it's just going to be a lot of the same feeling of just untapped potential, I feel like.
Yeah, not to get too far ahead at the draft, I do want to talk about the Packers coming up next week very briefly. But really, when you also look at it, Trey Lance, he's someone who has a ton of potential and has, probably someone that is attainable for the Chicago Bears. I think that he's going to go a little bit further down than people expect. But I mean, also looking at maybe a potential scenario with Zach Wilson, who's really played himself into being one of the premier quarterbacks in this class, and week after week continues to show why teams should trust him, and having that added playmaking ability. I think an offense like this for Zach Wilson would be something that could really take the pressure off of him as far as like needing to make plays all the time. Like he'll always have the option for the check down, and that could potentially limit some of the dangerous throws that he makes. He's not a stranger to making dangerous passes, but he is also a lot more accurate than Mitchell Trubisky and has shown a lot more explosive talent than Mitchell Trubisky ever did in college. So I think even a system like this, it would fit someone like Zach Wilson so perfectly and could really set this team up for having a lot of success initially. So really, I mean, if this Bears team can land even one of the top 4 talents in this draft, I mean, I have a feeling that this is going to be a successful team. It's hard to really imagine that the offense would take a step down when the quarterback talent level has been so low to begin with. I think adding that, and again, you said that adding an offensive line piece, maybe you even add, another small weapon, maybe in free agency or whatever, and that could really take this offense to the next level. And then we're talking about, are the Bears one of the top offensive teams? If you get that extra added level. And I think that is the one thing that we're missing a little bit on this Bears offense. And I think we consistently keep missing is that it factor guy. We don't have the it factor. And this kind of reminds me of when the Chicago Bears were trying to build up that defense towards the, what was that, after the 2017 season. Like they had a defense. You knew it was top 10. It was getting better. They had Leonard Floyd, who was doing a little bit better. Akeem Hicks, but you're like, hey, this team just does not have that it factor guy. Someone who just rises above everyone else. And while those are hard to find in the NFL, you can find that in terms of offensive line. You can find that in terms of a big playmaker, or better yet, a quarterback. And it's hard to believe if you can't add a quarterback with that it factor. And I think that Zach Wilson and Trey Lance, two quarterbacks that both have a little bit of that it factor, man, this offense could potentially be very special going forward.
Yeah, that's for sure. And moving on to the Packers, I think that, it's a game, of course, we have to wait until they play tomorrow night, correct? Or is it tonight?
I actually do not. I actually have no clue. We can figure that out real quick. Let's see.
Well,
Packers.
Either way, you can figure that out as I kind of keep going. We have to.
They play tonight. They play
tonight. So we have to kind of wait on the results a little bit to kind of see how it all stands, and whether or not Green Bay will be resting its starters, which I think is going to have a big impact in the game, but it should not have a big impact in the way that the Bears approach it. It's definitely a game that is, I would say, they have to look at it towards a must-win, I guess, technically, with the win against the Jaguars. If the Cardinals lose again, the Bears are still locked into that spot. So they could still make it in without winning. But you'd have to think the Bears would have to go with the mentality of this is a must-win game. And no matter what, no matter who they're lining up against, they have to be going out to win and play just like a playoff game. So I think, the storyline is definitely, changes as to, if they're facing, some second stringers, if they're resting key starters. I think that, for the Bears, it really shouldn't matter too much, except maybe in how you game plan, which of course is a big part of it.
Yeah, we also really do want the Seahawks to win. They're about to the Seahawks to lose to the LA Rams, because that would essentially secure Green Bay's bye if they win tonight as well. And if that happens, then Green Bay, I fail to believe that they wouldn't rest starters. And then we'd also draw probably a more favorable matchup. The Bears and the Packers, we all know how that rivalry has been going over the past 10 years, 20 years. Not very well, but at the end of the day, we just need to, kind of catch a break. And I think that would be the best thing for this team, truthfully, is if they're able to, kind of catch that break. And just one last important note as far as talking about the Packers, we need to remember that this Packers team, while it is a good team and a really good team, and they really took it to us the last time we played them, it is a beatable team. This Packers team came very close to losing against this Jaguars team. Actually, this Jaguars team with an even worse quarterback, they came very close to losing. And they also lost very extensively to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, ideally, I think we don't draw the Packers in the playoff. And another thing that I wanted to note is that we put up 41 points today. That's the same amount of points the Packers put up against our defense when our defense was really, really struggling. So really, I think that while they are a beatable team, I would much rather draw a team like the Seahawks or the Saints in the first round, because, at least with the Saints, when we played them, it was a really close game and our offense was one of the worst in the league. But what we need to happen over the next, 2 weeks is we need the defense to just click back. We need Jalen Johnson back, and we need everyone healthy.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be a big help. And, the defense is definitely making some mistakes and giving up some, plays in certain scenarios where they usually wouldn't concede. But I think that they can definitely get back to that level. And I think, Jalen Johnson would definitely help shore up, some of the passes that, people like Kendall Vilder have helped slip by. And, I even think that people like, McManus stepping up into some depth roles have done a good job. So it's just a matter of getting it all to be cohesive and get them back playing at the top level that we know they can play at. And, like you said, this Bears team has taken a big step forward, since that game against the Packers. And, I think that they can definitely get better on defense and, offensively as well. This team was not playing nearly at the same level. So, you'd have to hope that, if it even comes down to them playing head to head, like they would on any other given day, I think that, this Bears team is still one that you can have some kind of confidence in because, the Bears are playing hungry. I think that, in some parts, even in this last game, we kind of saw that hunger come back and, help push them through and help kind of spring that, a bit of a scoring spree that they went on in that, third quarter. So I think, this Bears team is going to be playing motivated football and, I definitely I'm not going to question their determination. It's just, it'll be a little unnerving, just having to play the Packers for it. But, it kind of seems how this is what always comes down to for the Bears. It's always important games late in the season against the Packers. And, if this is truly a great team that's going to do something in the playoffs, you figure they can, go out and win that game in Green Bay no matter what. And if they dump it, they probably didn't deserve to make it in anyway. So I think it's really a true good test for this Bears team, ahead of the playoffs. And if they do end up getting a win, it's going to be a good boost. And, they'll really be carrying some momentum into the playoffs. And you know what? I don't think there's anything more important than that. Teams can get cold at the wrong time. And, a team like the Bears right now seems like they're getting hot at the right time.
The reason why I want this team to the reason why I want the Packers to secure the bye is because I'm confident that this Bears team could beat the Packers one time. What I'm not confident in is that this Bears team can beat the Packers back to back. That is what is concerning me more, is that I think that if, the Packers secure the bye today and then they rest starters, then we're only going to have to play them really once because, it's going to be their backups. We should win, you'd hope, but you never really know with this Bears team. So, and then it would also give us a little bit more time to get the defense back on track. I think that, this Bears team, the defense, it has all the pieces there. I think what's really been hurting it has been Jalen Johnson not being in the past 2 weeks, which I believe he should come back this coming week, you'd hope. And then also on top of that, it's been, Buster Screen hasn't been playing. And, some of the play calling has been a little bit suspect at times. Obviously, we played well against the Texans, didn't play that great against the Vikings. Again, we were shorthanded there, and we're going against, pretty good offense, or an explosive offense. For sure. But this defense, if this defense can get back to where it was playing over the, in the beginning of the season where they were really dominating, and this offense can keep up what they're doing, this Bears team can beat any team in the playoffs, truthfully. But those are two big ifs. And, that's going to be Matt Nagy and Chuck Pagano's job to get both units playing to their best capacity.
Yeah, this Bears team at its absolute peak, with everything going right, which, very hypothetically, this doesn't always happen where you get that, but it's kind of like, you catch the Bears on the wrong day where they're doing everything right. I think they could beat, just about any team. And, like you said, it's going to be up to the coaching staff to extract that potential out of these players and get the most out of them. And if they're not, they're going to get bounced. And if they can, then, we could possibly be on board for a pretty special run. So, at least this team has given us something to hope for, and we're playing meaningful football in week 17. It's a good feeling, and hopefully we're playing for even more later on.
Exactly, and this offensive reemergence is going to help a lot in free agency, especially if there's a quarterback like Matthew Stafford who's looking to find a team to hopefully win a ring with. That's going to be really, really beneficial for those situations. And while it can be a little bit frustrating at times because, hey, we are kind of, in a way, actively hurting our draft stock and chances of securing someone like a Zach Wilson or a Trey Lance, it is very important in the free agency aspect. And the best thing for this team next year, I really believe, is a free agent quarterback, a high quality free agent quarterback, because it could hopefully make this offense, really maintain its dominance, and we can get the defense right back to where it was before, pieces start getting too old and start to regress, and we have to kind of do a little retool. So that's what I'm hoping. Khalil Mack is still fairly young. Akeem Hicks is still young enough to perform, and we need to make the most out of these years. So, man, it's a good day. It's been a good couple weeks to be a Bears fan. But we really need to improve this performance. And man, how bad does that Detroit Lions loss loom on us right now? That we would have already secured our spot in the playoffs if it wasn't for that meltdown.
Yeah, and if, somehow this team doesn't make it in, we're definitely going to be dwelling upon that. I think there's quite a few games we can dwell upon that they really, blew and, had a good chance to walk away with a win. But, that's how it goes. And, it all comes down to this final week, and none of that real past stuff matters. And, I guess it's, good. Maybe some of George Kittle's, luck will keep, shining off on the Bears, and he'll keep pulling for us. I don't know. But, it's going to be interesting. What's up?
How weird is it that the 49ers both have two players who actively say they've rooted for the Bears in Robbie Gould and George Kittle? That's kind of strange. You don't see that much.
And, it was kind of perfect timing, for that little extra motivation. And, that kind of just displays, just how interesting and odd sports can be, with just how different people are motivated. And, everyone out there is playing for something else, but it's a team sport. So it's a results thing, but there's really so much more that goes into it. And I think, it's just those small things that kind of show you how intricate the sport is.
And hey, George Kittle, if you ever want to join the Chicago Bears, I think that all of us fans would be very happy to welcome you.
100%.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, so much. We hope you guys enjoyed the game. And, just let us know what you think about the podcast. Let us know your thoughts on the win. And bear down, guys. We'll see you on Thursday.
Bear down.